How you doing, everyone? Greetings and welcome to today's episode of 8 Bits in the Basement. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be looking at my Texas Instruments home computer, otherwise known as the TI99 4A. Now this is an improved version of the TI99 4, and the TI99 4 came out in 1979. It was Texas Instruments' first foray into the home computer market. Now it did have a few little flaws, I suppose. The keyboard on it wasn't all that great, and there's one or two other little things to do with the internal design and all that weren't fantastic. So this improved version was brought out in 1981. Now, unfortunately, this was pretty much a failure for Texas Instruments, and it was discontinued in 1984. However, during the course of those few years, it was thrust in direct competition with the Commodore VIC-20, and that was pretty much its competition at the time. Anyway, that being said, I picked up this particular unit with quite a few accessories. So why don't we take a little look inside the box, see what I got with it, and we'll have a look at the Pewty as well and see what it can do. Okay, so I'm after removing everything from the box so that you can see a little bit more better what I got with this unit, and of course the unit itself. Now, so this system came to me with an awful lot of books and stuff, some that was original and some that was added afterwards. So I'll just show you. First off, I've got a little quick reference card for BASIC. So this is the type thing that you would have in front of you to quickly look up different commands in BASIC and what they did and what not, and all different codes and all the rest, if you were writing your own little BASIC game or program. Now this guy here is a manual for using a wired remote controller. That's what they call a joystick for this system. But I didn't actually get any joysticks with this. So this guy was included all the same. So it shows us where it plugs into the system and also what their joysticks actually looked like. Now, every TI99 4A that was sold got one of these guys. This is an installation instructions sheet. So it's much better than anything you'd find nowadays with a computer. But it kind of clearly explains what you get with the computer, what all the different ports on the computer are, how the things plug in, how to tune it into your TV, and also how to use the computer afterwards. There's a nice little book there. Here I've got my official Texas Instruments user manual. So this guy here is basically an instruction manual on how to use the computer, and also a very, very detailed look at how to use TI Basic, the BASIC that was available on this system. And this was included with most every one of these TI99s that was sold. Now, on top of that, there also came two of these. Now, they're exactly the same thing, but these are catalogues that were included with the system too. So it's pretty much what Texas Instruments were selling at the time the computer came out. So you've got a list of kind of most of the games that they had available on cartridge, and a little description of what they are, and pretty much it's a little piece of free advertising for them stuck inside of every computer that was sold. Now, on top of that, I got some third-party books as well. I've got this guy here, which is like, again, an introduction and how to use your TI99. It's all in French, of course, because this guy was sold in France, and it's pretty much speaking about TI Basic, and a little more than that. It goes into some of the expansions that can be bought for the unit as well, and pretty much how the unit can be generally used. And then there's this guy here, which is 50 programs for the TI99 4A. So again, it's full of basic listings that you can type in. It explains how they work, why they work, and little changes you can make to them yourself. So there's a couple of games in there, but it's mainly kind of programs on turning or converting temperatures from Celsius to Fahrenheit and that kind of thing, just to give a fairly detailed explanation on BASIC and how to use it. Now, as well as the computer, I also got the extras that go along with it. This guy here, for example. Now, on the European version, which is this particular model, there were a number of these little guys. This is the box that is needed to connect it to your television, because the TI99 4A itself has a video chip inside of it that gives a component signal on the European systems. And that component signal isn't actually really compatible with anything without a box to convert it into something more useful. So there was a number of these boxes available for the European version. This guy here is the Scart box. This end of it connects into the computer itself, and there's all kinds of technologically electronical wizardry that happens inside here and spits RGB synchronous signal to your television to give you an image on screen. And like I said, this here was the Scart version. There was also an RF version that you would tune in on your TV like you did with many systems back in the 80s. And there was also a version that gave composite, so that you could use an AV port on a monitor or whatever in order to see what was going on your computer. So that is that guy that the computer came with. Also, there's this guy here, which has a couple of 3.5 and one 2.5 millimeter male connectors on one end, and a DB9 joysticky looking connector on the other end. And this is actually the cable that was used to connect the TI99 4A up to a tape recorder. And it would have mainly been used for saving your own programs once you had written them, because there was very little software available on cassette, and really any software that was available was inferior to any of the software that came on cartridge for this unit. Now, this unit also has an external power brick, which is a gargantuan type thing. It's quite heavy, and it also makes quite a bit of noise when plugged in. But this guy plugs into the back of the computer itself, and this guy into the wall, and the power conversion happens inside in this box. So you've got 220 volts that go into this, the European version, and it's saying here that what it's outputting is on pins 1 and 2, it's given 16 volts of AC current at 1.6 amps, and on pin 2 and 4 it's given 8 volts of AC current at 0.15 amps. So really, if you buy one of these systems without one of these power converters, you're going to have a hard enough time trying to find or make up something that will replace it, because this is all kind of AC to AC conversion. And not only that, but the voltages that are needed are kind of non-standard at 16 and 8 volts as well, so it'd be a hard enough little one to replace. But anyway, any of the AC voltages that are given by this going in here are then converted to DC using a power board inside in this system for the main board itself. Now, so that is that guy. And then finally I got a bunch of games with it. I got in all 7 cartridges for this system, and this here's what our game cartridges look like. There's not a whole lot to look at. They're just kind of molded plastic. And then you know what game you have by this little sticker that's stuck on the back of the cartridge, and pretty much all of them are done in the same way. It's on the colour of the plastic varies in some of them. But I got manuals for most of them. So what I have here is I've got a manual for Star Trek Strategic Operations Simulator. So what you have here is you've got a manual that tells you how to insert the cartridge, how to turn on your computer to get it to work more or less. And then it gives detailed instruction about how to play the game. But that is pretty much that. I've also got Super Demon Attack, Video Chess, I've got Tombstone City, and I've got Munchman. And I also got the cartridges Burger Time and Parsec as well with the system that I don't actually have manuals for. And finally, a very nice thing that this whole lot came with was some of the original receipts for when not the computer itself was bought. I don't have a receipt for that, but for some of the accessories. Here, for example, in the FNAC in Strasbourg on the 18th of December 1983, somebody paid 380 francs plus tax for a standard UHF SECAM box. And here, bought 2 days later, on the 20th of the 12th, 83, in the same shop in the FNAC, we have 515 French francs spent on a manette de jeu, which is a joystick, the one I got the manual for, I suppose, but not the actual joystick for. And they paid 240 French francs for Munchman, one of the cartridges, and a further 115 francs for Tombstone City, another one of the cartridges there. So that comes to about 70 or 80 euro in today's money for those 2 games and a joystick. And this guy here is a little bit of errata afterwards for the computer itself, to do with the alpha lock key not to be pressed down when you're using a joystick. And that is almost everything apart from the computer, which I didn't show you. So this guy here is the TI99 4A itself, which, like I said, is an improvement on the TI99 4. It's got a full travel mechanical keyboard, and over here it's got this plateau here that says solid state software, which has jokingly been referred to as a plateau for keeping your coffee warm, but it's actually here, it's for cartridges to be plugged in. At the front here we've got a little LED which will tell you when the unit's been powered on or not, and we've got a switch here to power it on. Around the other side here, which is already open, is a little expansion port. So it's generally covered by this plastic cover here, but this would allow you to connect. You could have a host of stuff. You'd need like a second bench with a host of stuff connected daisy chained to this system. So you could have speech synthesizers, you could have, I think, floppy disk drives, and there was printers, and there's all kinds of stuff that could be connected to it. Yeah, making it a gargantuan kind of machine by the time you were finished, so much so that they actually sold a kind of a box that made it look a bit like a PC that you could put all those peripherals into and just connect to that port, just made it tidier. Around the back here then, we've got what looks like a DB9 joystick port, because it is, but it's not actually for a joystick at all. This guy here is what our tape recorder would plug into using that little cable I showed you earlier. This guy here is for our power block that'll plug in there, and this here is for whatever TV out box you're using plugs into this guy and then on into your TV. And around this side here we've got a DB9 connector that is indeed for a joystick. So it looks like you could plug an Atari compatible joystick in here, but actually it's wired up differently. So you were really supposed to use TI's own controllers, like those little remote controllers as they call them, that I showed you the manual for, but you can actually make up a crossover cable that'll allow you to connect in regular joysticks. But that there is pretty much what I got in the box and the system itself. So what we'll do is we will hook it up to the TV, we'll turn it on, and we'll have a little look and see what it could do. Okay, so here I am in front of my TI99 4A, and it's all after being hooked up. I've got my Scart box plugged into the back of the TV, and I've got the PSU plugged into the wall and into the TI. So we're all ready to boot up and see what it can do. So all I have to do is flick this switch here, little red leg comes on, and this here is the screen I'm given straight away. A nice colourful one with Texas Instruments little company symbol, and it tells me to press any key to begin. So when I press a key, it gives me a little menu. Telling me to press 1 for TI Basic. So I can pop in there and I can type in whatever program I have to type in, make the computer pretty much work for me. Now, if I want to use a cartridge, I'll show you here with this Star Trek one I have. I just plug it in here and I power on. I'm given exactly the same screen at the beginning. But now when I press a key, I've got a second option in my menu. I can press 2 to start Star Trek. So we'll press 2, and it takes just a second, but up comes the main title screen for the game, and then from there I can press a key and I can play away the game. Now you will notice though that there is one glaring omission from all this. There's absolutely no sound whatsoever. Generally speaking, when you turn on a TI, you get beeps. Press a key, you get a beep. Select the menu option, you get a beep. In the Star Trek game, you get a lovely rendition of the original Star Trek TV series score while it's shown that little title screen. But we don't have any of that. And it's not that I was sold a faulty system. This was working way fine in the beginning. I'm pretty convinced that I managed to kill the sound on this system myself. And the way it happened was I was testing loading stuff from cassettes, and I had that little cassette cable plugged into the back of my PC, and I was trying to feed it WAV files like you would with many other computers. But unknowns to me, there's a danger doing that with this particular system, at least, because if the volume level is a little bit too high, the way the sound chip in this works, it takes the audio from the cassette port and it'll pipe it out to the TV. But if it's a little bit too strong, you'll end up damaging the chip, and it seems that's exactly what happened. the system appeared to be working fairly okay. I couldn't get it to load anything. I finished up using it for that day and I put it away. And the next time I took it out, I powered it on. I was playing this little Star Trek game and I had the music, I had the sound, but it was from behind a wall of static. It was like the TV had been really badly tuned in and the music was playing, but you could barely hear it over the hiss and rumble of static. And after a couple of minutes, nothing. It just went silent, hasn't made a sound since. Now, this should be a very simple matter of opening up the system, taking out the faulty sound chip and putting in a replacement. And a lot of chips inside in this system are socketed, so it is possible to do that. However, those little sound chips aren't being made anymore and they're almost impossible to come after. And people are looking for like €100 for one of them online at the moment. So that's really not an option for me. Now, unfortunately, this is a European system. Were this an NTSC or an American system, there are a number of replacement chips that I could use instead of that. Just pop them in and away I go by changing one little jumper. And the reason for that is that sound chip pulls its clock frequency from the video chip inside in this. And with the American version, there is another pin that gives a different clock frequency. And you can use that particular clock frequency with a replacement chip. So that option isn't open to me with this European version. So I'm kind of stuck with no sound chip unless I pay a fortune for one. So that is pretty much the end of today's episode. Now, all isn't that bad because I think I may have a solution and I've gotten a few bits and pieces I need. In a part 2, what we'll do is we'll try and get that working. If I can't get it working, what harm? We'll have a look at the inside of the system anyway. We'll have a look at a few games and whatever I have for it that are silent, and we'll also have a look at a little bit of basic and how the system works overall. Hopefully we'll get it to work though. But yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with a joke, a Star Trek one, because this here reminds me of it. So you probably might know this, but a couple of years ago I went to California. I didn't really, I've never been to California. And I wanted to go to a Star Trek convention. So I dressed up as a doctor and I was going through security and the security guy stopped me and he said, hey buddy, you can't come in here. That's my best American accent. And I said, but why? And he said, because you ain't the real McCoy. Yeah, join me in part 2 and we'll see if this system works better than that joke did. Eh? Until then guys, take care. PD out.